Oh, it has a difficult matchup against Tron, and also this is a Phoenix deck, especially looking out for Thing in the Ice. It is not always that easy.
You can see that this is very much a story of David and Goliath here, Eli and Javier respectively. One of the greatest players in the world currently in Javier Dominguez, one of the nicest blokes on the planet as well, it has to be said. Eli Loveman, though, a stone-cold killer. We saw him come up through the Swiss portion, absolutely no mercy for his opponents, I can tell you that, and he is not here to make friends. I got the chance to catch up with Eli, and he does have a warm atmosphere about him. He seems to be a lovely bloke, but I tell you what, it's all business on the battlefield, Simon.
Absolutely, and he is on the play as well, so you can immediately see that Spell Pierce not able to counter either Vial. Of course, Spell Pierce is not a great card against humans otherwise.
Javier Dominguez has chosen to play Sleight of Hand rather than Opt. This is a little bit of an unorthodox choice, but I think this is going to inform card choices heading as we head further into Modern in the coming months and weeks. Given the fact that a player of Dominguez's caliber is choosing to play it, and you see it here on turn number 1, Aether Vial is going to be followed up with the Lieutenant. In response to the Lieutenant's trigger, in comes Champion of the Parish, building a board out of nowhere here is Eli Loveman.
Yeah, this is a pretty cool trick. When you have Aether Vial, you can basically benefit from all of the triggers. But Thing in the Ice is there to hopefully stop the human onslaught.
Let's see what's next on the docket now as Eli Loveman gets busy with his 2 humans there. Of course, Thing in the Ice, as we've already highlighted today, Simon, one of the key cards in this matchup in terms of preventing that onslaught.
Mm-hmm. And Javier deciding that he didn't want to lose his Thing in the Ice to another Lieutenant. In this case, it's actually a Phantasmal Image cosplaying as one.
Yes, indeed. As it comes down, going to do its best impersonation of that Lieutenant. We've got a Lieutenant and a Right Tenant here.
Bit of a weird placement there. Maybe it looks almost like an aura, but it is it is another creature. Lieutenant.
Yes, indeed. And, of course, clipping in for a bunch of damage. Dominguez knocked down to 12. Faithless Looting is going to chip away at the ice surrounding that particular thing. He is playing a number of free spells, quote-unquote free. We talk about free as in costing 0 mana. And that is going to mean that it's not impossible for him to flip this thing in the ice as early as this turn, Simon.
Yeah, just imagine how good something like a gut shot would be here. You gut shot the Phantasmal Image, which dies, and you actually, that's the only way how you can cast 4 spells this turn.
I mean, unless a gut shot's going upstairs, maybe a surgical extraction on your own card is certainly, an option available to Dominguez, but that's not a profitable line for him. He does want to get that Awoken Horror out of bed, into its clothes and off to school here, because Eli Loveman, as we've mentioned, Simon, he is building a real board here.
He had a great start. Humans on the play with the Vial, only the one Vial, and basically all the humans that put on pressure. And Loveman actually managed to grow them out of Lightning Bolt range.
So upticks the Aether Vial, a Noble Hierarch off the top, and with an Aether Vial on 3, that threatens an instant speed Deputive Detention. And that's going to be a very useful tool in Loveman's arsenal here. Yeah,
that might even be quite backbreaking, because Dominguez needs the Awoken Horror to get him out of this, and even that might be too late.
This is a huge attack, right? This is an attack for lethal.
Yeah, but there is a blocker available.
But I mean, as in, sorry, it's a 12-point attack here.
It's a crazy good draw by Loveman.
Wow, it certainly is. I can tell you. He's firing on all cylinders here and still has plenty of gas left in the tank with this double Deputive Detention hand of his. Now, let's have a look at what Dominguez has to say about things. And he has double Lightning Bolt. And that can certainly change the equation a little bit here. He's not going to be able to flip that thing in the ice just yet, but Lightning Bolt, Thought Scour, 2 cheap instants that will definitely have an impact on this game here.
Yep. So something I can prepare you for is that we might see a little bit of a weird timing thing where Dominguez knows that he needs to flip Thing in the Ice, but Loveman also knows that he needs to detention it. However, Dominguez, if he gets the chance, might be able to intervene and Lightning Bolt the Deputy of Detention. But if he taps out on his turn and the Thing in the Ice is still on 1 counter, Loveman could take the conservative line, which I think would be great, to, in his own end step, eat that Thing in the Ice.
We'll see what Dominguez's line is here. Mountain Tap for red mana, indicating a lightning bolt is in the near future. Yes, it is. And where's it going to be pointed, Simon? Oh, no, this is going to end badly for Dominguez here. If he goes for the double lightning bolt play, that instant speed deputive detention is going to punish him to the max here. And away goes the thing in the ice. I mean, he does lose that Thalia's Lieutenant, which is a bit of a blow, but all the same, getting in for 5 and removing that key piece of defensive magic that Javier Dominguez was able to wrangle there.
Exactly, and now without the thing in the ice and without a lightning bolt to get it back, it should be close to impossible for Dominguez to come back.
He needs something very special off of this Thought Scour. Bins a Surgical Extraction and a Manamorphose, and that is a Flame Slash off the top.
Just 1 damage short of killing Champion of the Parish.
Man, that champion is already leveled up too high. And Flame Slash is ineffective against the mighty 5/5 here. Of course, the Phantasmal Image dying to a slight gust of wind. But with Dominguez on 7, he's really under the gun.
Yeah, he didn't have enough time to find the right pieces. He effectively had 1 card that gave him a shot this game. And I have the feeling that it's all going to be too late now.
Yeah, Flashback Faithless Looting does not augur well for the current world champion, a member of the MPL, of course, but it's all of the titles in the world aren't going to save him here from the onslaught of Eli Loveman, who takes out game number 1. And you can see, ladies and gentlemen, look at this face. This guy is his composure, Simon. Under the warm glow of the limelight in the feature match area, it's not easy to keep your cool, but Eli Loveman has done exactly that, picked up game number 1. We've got to go to a break, my friends. We'll be back with more quarterfinal action in just a few moments. Dolt has already taken place between Alexander Hayne and his opponent, Chris Kvartek there, Tron versus Human. We can have a look at the matchup between these two players. A little bit of a David and Goliath story again here, Simon.
Absolutely. Alexander Hayne won Pro Tour Abyssin Restored, and that's been quite a while. I believe 7 years it's been. So he's back in this elusive top 8. And of course, he knows that you don't get too many chances. He wants to make it work.
Many players will, of course, remember Haynes' devastating run at Pro Tour Abyssin Restored. As you say, 7 years ago, Simon, it was in fact the very first Pro Tour, very first Mythic Championship I ever watched on coverage. I was a very, very new player at the time. And of course, at that time, you see someone win a massive big tournament like that, and you just assume they're the best player in the world. And so for the longest time, I thought Alexander Hayne was just an absolute all-time great. I mean, he's one of the best players in the world. I mean, currently, he's definitely an underrated pro as a member of the MPL and a high performer. But he was like above Finkel. You know, he was up there. He was the Michael Jordan of Magic for me for a long time, because I just thought, wow, this guy's incredible. This guy's the best, the best player in the world.
Yeah. He definitely used those 7 years very well. You can see that he cracked $200,000 lifetime earnings, and that is despite just having this one top 8.
Yes, well, we say just, yes. It's funny, I caught up with Mike Segrist. Oh, hang on a second, sorry, let me just pick the name I dropped there, sorry. I caught up with Mike Segrist yesterday about Hayne, because obviously he was pulling hard for the Canadian, and he said Hayne's skill is not reflected in his record, and I agree with that entirely. Alexander Hayne, you will have seen him stream, you will have seen him play. This guy he's hungry, and he's due. He's due for a win, and I'm expecting big things from this weekend. And in this top 8, of course, already picking up game number 1 against Chris Kvartek. No, I'm not taking anything away from young Chris here. Certainly a player with a fair bit of experience under his belt, and as you can see, he's ready to rumble with his Humans list. Although, it's a tricky matchup for the Humans deck. Tron is just full of answers. Yeah,
you have to somehow have a game plan where you beat Karn, that's doable, but then especially Ugin and Oblivion Stone are really tricky to answer. Oblivion Stone in particular, because it doesn't get stopped by Galactique or Thalia.
Well, these players both shuffling up. Looks like neither of them are happy with their opening hands here. We may have a double mulligan to 6, unless I'm mistaken here. Now, something that's important to note here in the quarterfinals and in the semis and indeed the final itself, all throughout Sunday, Simon, we're playing best of 5 Magic, and that has a slightly different implication when it comes to sideboarding. Yeah, what we do here is we try to emulate the best of 3 experience, but what we tried early on was one game without sideboards, one
game basically played normally.
Au naturel.
And then up to 4 sideboarded, but that was a bit too many sideboarded games. So now the balance is 2 games without sideboarding than all the remaining ones.
Which I guess is closer to the 1 to 2 ratio that we see in best of 3 matches.
It is, and the issue is if you really have a really lopsided matchup after sideboarding, then the 1-4 dynamic
you
just
book a
doesn't work
Buckley's
out.
chance. Yeah, it doesn't work at all. Exactly right. No real kinks or twists or turns in either of these deck lists to talk about. We've seen some Tron lists playing Thragtusk in the main deck, some of them playing Wormcoil, but Alexander Hayne has really gone for the purest form of the list, I have to say. There aren't too many frills involved in this. Of course, all of the deck lists are available for your perusal. You'll for your further viewing pleasure, of course, at using the Cardboard Live app or just looking at your screen, whichever one's easiest for you. You can see Alexander Hayne's list just here, Simon. And again, as I say, nothing too spicy about this list.
No, but I have the feeling that with the mulligan rule, especially somebody like Alexander Hayne, who I know is just really smart about these kind of things, is probably just planning for a lot more games where he only has colorless mana. So I think you want the maximum possible amount of big, high-impact colorless cards. And even the amount of forest, you're not too happy about having a forest in your opening hand.
Sounds like players are ready down to the feature match area, so we can head down there right now and see what's going on for game number 2 between Alexander Hayne and Chris Kvartek. Of course, Alexander Hayne picking up game number 1 rather handily. And Simon, someone else who agrees with you about your assumption there when it comes to the Tron deck is Mike Sigrist, who said you don't want all of these sort of one-offs. You don't want the situational cards. Thragtusk great in some matchups, less impressive in others. You don't want them in game number 1, especially because of the mulligan rule, right? You want to dig to your hardest, heaviest hitters every single game. And as a result of that, we see Hayne with a very streamlined list indeed. Looks like we're off to the races here for game number 2 between Alexander Hayne and Chris Kvartek as part of the quarterfinals here at Mythic Championship 2. Slower start for Hayne here with a Chromatic Star. And an Aether Vial on turn 1 is exactly what Kvartek's looking for. Ooh, here's Thalia, Guardian of Thraben.
So humans on the play after losing game 1. Of course, that is what you want to be because your disruptive elements are just that much better. But look at that, 2 Tron pieces already on the battlefield. For those that don't know the art, that is a tower and a power plant, and I already spotted an Urza's Mine in Hayne's hand.
Just natural Tron. Natural Tron. They've always got it, Simon. But Chris Kvartek is actually going to throw a little bit of a spanner in the works here with this Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. Surprisingly good against the Tron deck, even though it goes so big with its mana. Just disrupting all of the stars, the spheres, and what have you. Not to mention preventing Khan coming down on turn 3.
Yeah, I think that's actually the most important part. You see that there's no Wormcoil engine in Hayne's hand. It said Karn Liberated and Ulamog. So Karn is going to cost 8, which is awkward because Hayne will need to invest in additional mana. However, we might be seeing a turn for Ulamog instead.
Well, here's Mantis Rider to put some pressure on. And now Thalia's Lieutenant as well. The gang's all here. Going to get in for some lunch now. Big attack for 7 damage. Slamming in to Alexander Hayne. He definitely has to rally here. He's got to find his way back into it. But as you say, Simon, well, turn 3 Ulamog's a pretty good way to... Or turn 4 Ulamog's a pretty good way to do that, huh? So next up for the Canadian superstar now. In hand for him, Ulamog, Khan. Urza's Mine, I imagine we'll see making an appearance very shortly. And a Sylvan Scrying as well, hanging out.
Yeah, and that is probably getting cast here. Just 3 mana and...
Chromatic Star, cycled away. There's an Ancient Stirrings now. And of course, all of these cards still costing 1 more for Hayne. Going to crack that Relic, draw another card here, of course, with the leftover mana from that Urza's Mine.
It's actually really nice to see here how to sequence things. You want to get those unknown draws out of the way so that you know what to search for or not to search for.
Yep.
If you randomly draw a tower here, you can cast Ancient Stirrings instead of Sylvan Scrying because you know you don't need to find that
specifically a tower. But Hayne does find a tower, as you say there, with that copy of Sylvan Scrying. It cost him a little more mana than usual. That's why we're seeing him tap out so low here, thanks to the Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. And as we already highlighted, Simon, it can be a real thorn in the side of any player looking to resolve non-creature spells. But I think Hayne is... the wind is at his back at the moment, I would say.
So the thing is, you do have to be a bit concerned about the upcoming turn, but the humans deck has already deployed most of its cards. So now the question is, how much damage do you take this turn? We had 7 last turn. Now it's 8, plus every human will add an additional point of damage.
So Anafenza the Foremost is not at its best in this matchup, just a 4-4 beater. Of course, all of the graveyard nonsense going on with Anafenza doesn't have too much of an impact in this matchup. And the other card in Quartek's hand here, Thadi Guardian of Thrame, just a blank piece of cardboard at the moment.
No, it's a +1/+1 counter. I think you have to do that because it's going to be a game of inches here.
Look at that. Casting a legendary creature when one's already on the battlefield. But Simon, as you say, that's just a little bit of a travel preps there for this Thalia's Lieutenant that's going to get in there. We don't see that kind of play happen too often, Simon.
No, and now do the math here. Ulamog is effectively dealing with 3 creatures. 1 gets blocked, 2 gets exiled. That means 1 attack gets through, but the creature that will survive most likely is that Thalia, which is just lethal against Ulamog.
Oh,
now, because Chris dealt that additional point by casting Thalia.
Just 200 IQ plays here, Simon, but an Oblivion Stone from Alexander Hayne, and that is a much cleaner answer to this human problem that he has here, rather than that Ulamog.
Yep. And I don't know if he had that Oblivion Stone for a while. It did look to me like he maybe top decked it.
I think he might have just ripped it off the top of the deck here. Away goes the Oblivion Stone. The fate is not favouring those humans there. Quartek, with no other option, even the Aether Vial bites the dust. And here is Thalia number 3 now.
Yeah, that's going to look a bit embarrassing against Mr. Mog.
Oh, no, he's heading to the lunch buffet. He's a hungry, hungry hippo. There you see Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, the top end of the Tron deck, going to make a big appearance here. Away go the 2 lands. Obviously, Hayne very confident he can deal with the Guardian of Thraben here. And with a 10-10 getting ready to rumble and also annihilate the library of Chris Quartek. This one looks very close to over, Simon. Alexander Hayne, I mean, look, hats off to Chris Quartek. He played this game almost, I mean, as well as it was possible to do so, making highly unorthodox plays to give him the best chance of winning.
The turn for Ulamog was not an out anymore.
Which was incredible.
That's how close this game was.
But the 1-2 punch of Ulamog plus Ugin is enough to take Alexander Hayne across the line and give him a very comfortable 2-0 lead over the humans player Chris Quartek there. So unfortunate stuff for Chris. He's going to have to dig deep, rally hard, and come back in those post-sideboarded games. But right now, Eli Loveman, all business, pulled back the hair. Here we go. And Javier Dominguez as well, the current reigning world champion. We've already talked about this matchup a little bit, Simon. Humans on the left. Dominguez with Is It Phoenix on the right, and we're off to the races. Serum Visions to kick things off here for the Spaniard, and an Aether Vial on turn 1 for Eli Loveman, just the way he likes it. In hand for him. I think I could see a couple of Kite Sail freebooters there. They're going to be useful.
Yeah, not bad. I do like this turn to Pyromancer Ascension. Of course, it will take some time to get active, but this is a card that allows the Is It Phoenix deck to play a super grindy, value-oriented game.
In hand for Dominguez here, Faithless Looting, Sleight of Hand, Gut Shot, and Metamorphose. But here is that copy of Kite Sail Freebooter. But it looks like a Gut Shot is going to take care of the champion before the champion can level up too high here. And away it goes.
Yeah, and that's a really nice card to have in your starting hand when your opponent starts with the champion of the parish. Actually, Gut Shot just really good against humans overall.
Metamorphose, double Sleight of Hand, and a Faithless Looting here for Dominguez. And Loveman has his pick of the litter. What do you go after here, Simon? Maybe the looting to prevent them drawing extra lands?
Yeah, I think it's the looting or maybe just a Sleight of Hand. The amount of cards that Dominguez has right now is not very high. So you really don't worry too much about them drawing to discarding to. And the double Sleight of Hand would have been the first counter on Pyromancer Ascension as well.
Smart pick here from Loveman. reducing Dominguez's options as he heads into his third turn. Off the top, that looked like a Faithless Looting. Only got a very quick look at it. No Lightning Bolt, in fact. Added to the arsenal of the current world champion. Member of the NPL, of course. And we'll see what's next up here with Metamorphose.
At worst, that Lightning Bolt can free up the Kitesail Freebooter, can free up the Sleight of Hand.
So we've got some special coloured dice in the feature match area to represent floating mana at the moment. And we're going to see one of them go away there to power out this Sleight of Hand. A land and an Arclight Phoenix. And Dominguez is going to very happily pick up that Phoenix. I imagine the Faithless Looting makes that a very easy card to discard.
Absolutely. And things are looking great for Dominguez here.
Not a lot of pressure from Loveman as of yet. And in his hand, there's not a huge amount more to come. A couple of Kitesail Freebooters and Meddling Mage and a Mantis Rider. I mean, that's reasonable, but look at this. Double Arclight Phoenix hitting the bin from Javier Dominguez. And how many spells does he cast this turn? 1, 2, and 3.
Works out beautifully.
Oh, my goodness. The numbers just they crunch themselves. We had Metamorphose into Sleight of Hand, into Faithless Looting, and it doesn't matter, Simon, when the Phoenixes were put in the bin. As long as 3 spells were cast at any point during that turn, whether they were in the bin or not, they're coming back.
And it would have been a great turn already, but finding the second Phoenix off of the Faithless Looting is huge.
This is just this is absolute butchery here. This is utter annihilation. As double Phoenix come in, get rid of that Kitesail Freebooter. Get that out of here, says Dominguez with a big attack for 6. And Loveman now, I mean, he's got his work cut out for him. I don't know what he can do to get back into this. I think it starts with something like a Deputy of Detention, but even then, Dominguez has the Lightning Bolt.
The real problem for Loveman is that the Pyromancer Ascension is also very threatening. So there are 3 permanents that you have to deal with, but you don't even have flyers to really fight those Arclight Phoenixes. You don't want to trade your Mantis Rider with them.
So here's another copy of Kitesail Freebooter revealing Thought Scour and Sleight of Hand, 2 cards that are going to dig Dominguez to the answers he needs to keep up this pressure.
I think you have to take Sleight of Hand once again with the same reasoning.
It's because it sees more cards.
Well, it's arguably the better card anyway, but also there's 1 copy in the graveyard already.
Yes, and that threatens to put a counter on that Ascension there, of course. So, well, we're going to take both. Let's just make it easy. We're going to take both of those cards here. So leave Dominguez hellbent, as we call it. But with 2 hasty 3-2 flyers, Dominguez certainly in the driver's seat. Loveman knocked down to 6 now.
It actually works out perfectly for Dominguez as well. Those attacks for 6 and 6 are exactly lethal because of Horizon Canopy.
Now, a Lightning Axe was the pickup for Dominguez. Not the best card for him to draw. Here's Athalia's Lieutenant. In response, we're going to see a Mantis Rider. Now, that's a lot of power being put on the battlefield, Simon.
Yeah, that is definitely a way to come back here. You suddenly have a 4/4 flyer, and your Kitesail Freebooters are also able to trade with the Phoenix.
Now, this isn't a huge swing. Let's be very clear here, because Dominguez still has that Pyromaster Ascension threatening to go off. He still has the Phoenixes ready to rumble. Loveman is trying to think what attacks he can put on to put some pressure on here, but things have certainly balanced out a little bit more now, Simon.
Absolutely. However, we also know what Dominguez is holding. So if he draws a card off his library, he will be able to cast that Lightning Axe.
Lightning Axe in hand, along with, I think that was just a land there. Might have been a Scalding Tarn, yes. And also the option to flashback a Faithless Looting here. Don't know what that would achieve here for Dominguez, but he's going to very carefully consider all of his options.
So if you kill the Mantis Rider and attack with both creatures, Loveman is priced into blocking, which means you get your Thought Scour back, and you still have 1 Phoenix in the air alive, threatening lethal. That is a great position to be in, even without cards in hand.
And that's exactly what we see happen here as Dominguez gets busy with these 2 3/2s. One's going to trade off with that Pirate. And Loveman knocked down to 2. A tense moment for him. Dominguez, the one with the recursive, powerful threats out of the yard. But Loveman does have the power of synergy at his side. In hand for him. Is it double Mantis Rider? Surely not.
You can see that Dominguez thought about that Thought Scour for quite a while, because there is a line where he waits until next turn to cast it, just because there is a chance to cast 3 spells again next turn.
So in hand, a single Mantis Rider, a Meddling Mage, and I think an Ether Vial off the top there. Yes, it was for Loveman. So he can, again, put a couple more creatures into play here, but he is struggling to keep his snoot above water here, Simon, because he's really in dire straits.
Loveman's only way to win this game is to be as aggressive as possible while barely staying alive. And that probably means you just keep a single blocker for Arclight Phoenix and hope for the best. You're not playing around a second Phoenix coming back. You're not playing around Burn because you can't. So, well, I guess you can put Meddling Mage on Lightning Bolt. But ultimately, it's just going to be trying to win before Dominguez finds one of many, many odds.
And I think this is a skill that newer players can try to pick up here. When you're this far behind, you need to take greater risks. Loveman here going down to 1 to cast this copy of Meddling Mage. And Simon, as I was saying, the further you are behind, the more ready to take risks you have to be. You have to recognize, okay, I'm never beating this card, I'm never beating that card, but if my opponent draws any number of other cards that I can beat, I need to maximize my chances to win in those situations here.
Playing to win rather than playing not to lose is kind of the key.
And Loveman's doing it. I love this. I love to see this from Eli Loveman. I got the chance to talk to him. I want to talk to you about the psychology of this bloke because it's really impressed me throughout the entire weekend. He's getting busy. He's swishing the willow around. He's getting on the front foot, trying to chip in for as much damage as possible. He could be stone cold dead here, but that isn't stopping him. Putting Javier Dominguez down to 2. This one's going right down to the wire. If Dominguez can find a way to get rid of that Mantis Rider...
Yeah, and Dominguez top-decked a Faithless Looting, I have to say, because suddenly the chance to cast 3 spells again is definitely live.
So 2 cards off the top. Lightning Bolt, of course, is under a Crispicula Moratorium.
I think that Meddling Mage might be winning him the game because Dominguez's things in the eyes are not going to help him here.
Thing in the eyes is, I mean, he can only cast one of them, and it's not going to hold off this onslaught of humans, especially the 2 evasive ones here. Loveman may have snatched victory from the jaws of defeat here. Dominguez has to discard 2 cards. Away goes that useless Lightning Bolt as well as that thing in the ice. He can play the final thing in the ice in his hand. It's not going to do him any good. All of a sudden, Eli Loveman stitching together one of the most miraculous victories we've ever seen.
Yep,
Playing to his outs.
Amazing.
Incredibly masterful and precise management of resources, and Dominguez packs them up. Oh my goodness, Eli Loveman with a victory that he can certainly be proud of. Dominguez slamming those Phoenixes into play. Loveman didn't even break a sweat. He's like, well, I know how I've got to win this game, and I'm going to do it.
Pretty impressive.
Oh my goodness, and it's not the first time. I will tell you this time, and it is not the first time we have seen this kind of play from this young bloke here. Yesterday, winning in for top 8 against João Andrade from Portugal. João was there playing Hardened Scales Affinity, crunching the numbers, and I can tell you this, Eli Loveman, he took out a timeshare in the brain zone of his opponent. He got so heavily invested in his opponent's psychology and wrong-footed him to the point that João Andrade was just in 2 minds. Andrade didn't make any gameplay mistakes, but you could see he was feeling the pressure. And Loveman is sitting there, cool as a cucumber, riding that psychological edge all the way to victory. I'm very impressed with this bloke's mental game. In any case, Alexander Hayne, Chris Kvartek going to game number 3, perhaps the final game in this quarterfinal here between these 2 players, with Hayne picking up 2 wins on the trot with Tron. And Simon, as we've discussed, that's kind of what we're expecting here, Tron versus Humans.
Yeah, I didn't expect it to be that clear. I think that Humans has the tools to fight Tron, but also Alexander Hayne is just very precise with these mulligans, basically saying, look, I'm gonna go for Tron every single time because all my other cards don't really matter in this matchup. I need to find my 8 drops, actually, my 8 and 10 drops to really win those games.
So a nice quick start here for Chris Kvartek, powering out a turn 2, Mantis Rider that's going to get busy here.
With the Exalted trigger as well, so actually one of the fastest starts that Humans can have. Not as snowbally, not as snowbally as the champion of the parish and lieutenant draws, of course.
But Alexander Hayne, with that expedition map, I think his expedition is going to be successful. They're going to find the fabled Urza's power plant here.
Yeah, they need to charge their laptops.
And now, with Chris Kvartek having to put on as much pressure as possible. I mean, is that the name of the game? Just all out, pedal to the metal, as much damage as possible, as quickly as possible?
Plus a bit of disruption. So pressure, disruption, and then you can sometimes hold back a Mantis Rider to threaten a hasty damage.
No. Chris Kvartek is not about that life. He's not about the life of holding back, playing around things. Nah, he can smell blood in the water. Well, not in the water. It's not a swimming creature. Blood in the air. The metaphor kind of fell apart there, son, but the point is he's getting very aggressive here.
Yeah.
An attack for 6, going to knock the Canadian down to 10 life here. But there is that power plant. Tron on turn 3, Simon, they always have it. And let's have a look at what Hayne can deploy here. Khan liberated, of course, the namesake, not the namesake, but very much the signature card of the Tron deck.
Yeah, but I think too little too late, too weak on turn 3 against this board.
That is true, and Oblivion Stone also isn't going to do it as it costs 8 mana to roll the board.
There's currently no 8th mana, so this next turn is actually quite interesting.
Ooh.
Is it maybe Oblivion Stone plus Walking Ballista?
Simon, I'll tell you this as well. Look what's lurking in Chris Kvartek's hand, a Thalia's Lieutenant. That means that if Alexander Hayne does stone cold nothing, if he just F6s straight through his turn, which is unlikely, he's dead next turn.
Yep.
So Hayne is really, really under the pressure here. He has to do something, and very, very quickly, to keep himself in this one. Otherwise, it's going to be heading to game number 4. And that's not what Hayne wants. You want that 3-0 victory. You want to warm up nice and easy at the quarterfinals with a clean sweep 3-0. But Chris Kvartek's going to do everything he can to stop that from happening for Hayne.
I'm pretty sure Hayne will take it any way he can get it. But that one win is what separates him from the semis.
So what does he do here? What does he do?
So he drew a Chromatic Sphere. So that gives him even more options than he already had. Walking Ballista is a powerful option, but leaves the flyers around. Then you have Karn Liberated, which I think is one of the weakest options because it's the only spell you cast this turn, and you only -3 on a Mantis Rider or the champion. You're pretty likely dead or almost dead if you do that. Then we talked about Oblivion Stone, which is just not very strong on this particular turn.
Well, here's 7 mana. It's going to be a Walking Ballista for 3, and with 1 mana left over, a Chromatic Sphere. Now, Hayne did have the option of casting something like a Spatial Contortion there to deal with one of the Mantis Riders, but opted instead to load up the Ballista. And does that change a lot? I guess it means a chump block on the Champion of the Parish before knocking one of those Mantis Riders out of the sky?
Yeah, but at the same time, Hayne does not have the guaranteed land next turn. However, what he can do is he can sacrifice the Chromatic Sphere for green, cast a Sylvan Scrying for another tower, and that is effectively 1 more mana.
Oh, like a little ritual type effect here.
Yeah.
A weird way to do it, build your own ritual.
The weakest of rituals.
Ooh, but a Thalia's Lieutenant here, we talked about it before, and Kvartek is going to pump up the jam on all of these creatures, piling on the damage, and Alexander Hayne in full-on survival mode. He's got the choice here of either shooting down one of those Mantis Riders or letting them pick up a counter and hoping that his Oblivion Stone next turn is just going to be enough. What does he do?
You have to have that Walking Ballista as a chump blocker, because otherwise you're not super likely, but it's possible that you take lethal otherwise.
I think he's going to, though. Look what's in hand here for Kvartek. Another copy of, well, effectively another copy of Thalia's Lieutenant. That can grow the Mantis Riders to 5/5s, Simon. And, I mean, we can crunch the numbers later on, you and I, but rough back of the envelope says that 5 + 5 = 10, and Alexander Hayne's life total is 10. This one might be in the books. Chris Kvartek with an explosive human draw, putting himself well and truly in control of this game. Here is the illusion, Michael.
So, this doesn't have to resolve, though. The problem is, if the Lieutenant gets shot...
It comes in as a Mantis Rider.
Exactly.
Let me crunch those numbers. 4 + 4 + 3... But no, in they come. 10 damage in the air. Alexander Hayne scoops them up. We're going to game number 4. Chris Kvartek, he dug deep, Simon, and he's back in it.
Yep, he found a way to beat turn 3 Tron by just not giving Alexander Hayne a good play with 7 mana on turn.
Piling on as much pressure as possible, and he has been rewarded for it as we head back to our first table here. Eli Loveman on the left, Javier Dominguez on the right. We'll see how things shake out in our next game. We can have a look at the sideboards of these two players, of course. Sideboarding, a very important component of not just the entire tournament, not just every game of Magic that we've seen this weekend, of course, but also in the top 8 where it's best of 5. Here is the sideboard plan for Eli Loveman. And Simon, out of this collection of 15, what are we looking at here?
So the human sideboard often has a lot of creatures. Most importantly, for example, these Auriok champions. You want to be able to bring in humans when possible so that your synergies stay relevant. Now, against the Izzet Phoenix deck, what you would want is some easy graveyard hate, but that is just not something that the humans have access to.
Cards like Damping Sphere. I mean, the second line there, the second ability has a little bit of utility, but it can be a little slow, and it doesn't do its best work in this matchup.
I'm not a fan of it. I think that Deputy of Detention is worthy of consideration. It can be killed by Lightning Bolt, but often you just want to be able to kill Thing in the Ice, which is also why I like Dismember, actually.
That was the card I wanted to talk about a little bit here, of course. Dismember, not an overly synergistic card when it comes to the rest of the humans list, but a key piece of disruption against other creature-focused strategies. Not only could it pull apart a Thing in the Ice, it can also, take out any number of alternate threats that Javier Dominguez may lean on. For example, Crackling Drake. We can move on and have a look at his sideboard here. Crackling Drake amongst the 15 in the board here for the Spanish superstar. What do you like in this one here, Simon?
A bit of removal. I think Flame Slash, Anger of the God, maybe even Abrade. Those are the cards that will make the matchup better. You can take out Spell Pierce. You can take out Surgical Extraction. Those are cards that are almost dead, maybe except for the fact that they do count as an instant or sorcery that you played. And then you probably have enough space to bring in Crackling Drake, maybe even Chandra, although that's not super important.
I want to ask you, though, the humans list, it's known as 5-color humans. It plays, the full Wooburg colors with the mana base of Cavern of Souls, Unclaimed Territory, Ancient Ziggurat. With a mana base that is this stretched, is Blood Moon a consideration, or is it just a little too slow?
It's too slow. It doesn't solve your issues with this in this matchup. If you keep a hand with Blood Moon, that's at least one card that is not doing anything else, and then most likely your opponent already has 2 or 3 creatures on the battlefield. Even worse, if Eli has a start with an Ether Vial, that Blood Moon is not doing anything.
No, it's going to be stuck right behind the clouds. You're not even going to see it come out. So we will see what these players have done to reposition their decks post-board, because we are off to the races for game number 3. Eli Loveman in the enviable position of having a 2-0 lead in the quarters against one of the greatest players on the face of the earth. Javier Dominguez, current reigning world champion, MPL superstar as well. He's got his work cut out for him. He cannot afford to miss a trick here, Simon.
Yeah, he especially can't afford to not have the Pyromancer Ascension get active like last game. That was actually a big cost. His turn 2 play never mattered. And what we do have to say is that the Izzet Phoenix deck does benefit a bit more from sideboarding. And there's the Blood Moon making me look completely foolish.
Well, I don't know. At the moment, it's making Dominguez look a little foolish, as you said, Simon, because Loveman is opening on the Ether Vial. And so I reckon we're going to get to a point here where even at the earliest opportunity that this Blood Moon could come down, as you said, Loveman's going to have 3-4 creatures on the battlefield.
Yeah. What Dominguez can do is abrade the Ether Vial. Or just say, okay, that's also a card you don't want to stick around.
Oh my goodness. Loveman is just firing on all cylinders. He's fired all the hits here. Thalia guarding the Thraben, really going to mess with what Dominguez is up to here. There's a 3-mana Abrade. I mean, he's not out of the woods yet. Let's talk about this. It's not out of the woods yet. Dominguez still has plenty of options, but it's starting to look like it's all coming up Loveman.
Well, Dominguez is going for the hardcore Blood Moon plan. Abrading that Ether Vial should have been a sign for Loveman that he's not going to cast many more spells this game.
Yeah,
I'm actually a little bit surprised about the Bugler here because that abrade was quite a tell from my perspective.
So Loveman, with the option of a Phantasmal Image, a Thalia's Lieutenant. Oh, sorry, excuse me. That's what's in hand. He's got a Deputy of Detention and a Reflector Mage to choose from here with his Bugler, and he's going to go for the Reflector Mage. And across comes Thalia for 2. But in hand for Loveman, I think I saw an Aether Vial hanging out there. So this Blood Moon, pretty devastating right now, but not quite the end of the world.
I think Aether Vial was in the pile with the Bugler, so we'll have to see about that.
Okay.
Oh, never mind.
So all non-basics now are mountains. That's not going to be a problem for Dominguez with those basic islands, but Eli Loveman cannot create any other color of mana other than red.
Exactly. His mana is not great right now. And that Aether Vial will take a bit of time to get active.
And in the meantime, Dominguez can pile on the pressure with Crackling Drake. At the moment, it's a 3-4, and it's already drawn a card. So Dominguez starting to get himself right back into this here. Aether Vial ticks up to 1. Nothing for Loveman to put in just yet. Phantasmal Image, Thalia's Lieutenant, Reflector Mage in hand. He's a million, billion, squillion miles away from casting any of them. Oh, but is that an Ancient Grudge here from... No, surely not from Dominguez. No, I must have misseen the card. It's a Faithful Suiting, excuse me.
Yeah, actually, I don't think that.
No, I don't think it's in his deck. No, I got too excited there. I thought another answer to the Aether Vial would really seal the deal here for Dominguez. But it's a Flame Slash now on the Guardian of Thraben, tapping that Flooded Strand for red mana, of course, under the Blood Moon. And here's the Pyromancer Ascension. Excuse me. Of course, if they were a Pyromaster, they wouldn't be ascending. They've already reached the pinnacle.
That's how you
remember it. Well, in my case, how you don't remember it. In any case, there it is. Powerful Storm Enabler, seeing a bit of now getting a bit of love in the Is It Phoenix list here. Sleight of hand, of course, cast off that basic island, and that's going to make that Crackling Drake even more powerful.
I had the brilliant idea of copying Crackling Drake with Phantasmal Image to get that extra card, but it's not very powerful in the humans deck.
In the humans list, no, just the old 0/4 flyer. Not quite, huh? So, Loveman, all in on the Aether Vial plan here, it would seem. But in the meantime, Dominguez is going to beat down with a Crackling Drake. I like the way that Dominguez defied our expectations here, Simon, by boarding in the Blood Moon and making sure he maximised that plan. He looks to have taken a much more controlling posture in these post-board games.
Which he would do independent of the Blood Moon. But here we see that being on the play, it really worked out for him.
It really, really did. I mean, Loveman was looking to invest heavily in creatures on the battlefield, but with the lack of anything going in the face of the Aether Vial being destroyed, I should say here, he wasn't able to keep pace. Here is a champion of the parish and another champion in Eli Loveman's upkeep here in response to the Aether Vial trigger. So that's at least a little bit of pressure here.
I think there is some confusion about the mana that Dominguez used last turn.
Or maybe he perhaps played an extra land, or... All right, seems to have resolved itself here, and play continues. And now the second champion comes into play.
Yeah, but the Crackling Drake should be tapped because it attacked.
Okay, we can get... I mean, that's an easy fix. We can get that Crackling Drake tapped. You can see it. In Dominguez's mind, it is obviously tapped because he's not blocking. So both these players understand. They're both on top of where the board is, and I don't know. These problems have a way of fixing themselves, Simon. Little life hack for everyone out there. If you can't be bothered to tap or untap a permanent, just wait for your next untap step.
Also, we never quite know what these players are saying.
Yes,
so
yeah. Yeah, there was a situation in the feature match area that may have been a little bit confusing on camera because both players agreed on a board state that the judges didn't agree on. But if both players agree on it, then that's what happens. So there was a big kerfuffle about it, but ultimately play continued. And now
good sportsmanship by both of these players, I have to say. With Loveman always being helpful with the Manamorphose dice.
Yeah. I'm not surprised to see it from Javier Dominguez. This guy has been he is one of the brightest, shiningest names in professional Magic. And I'm also not surprised to see it from a relative newcomer in Eli Loveman. We haven't seen a lot of this bloke at the top tables of Magic, but I tell you what, I hope we see a lot more, because I think he really brings a lot to the sport.
Yeah.
I think just his demeanour, his attitude, his play-to-win mentality that isn't compromised with a good sense of character and bearing, and an understanding that ultimately this is a game that you play to have fun. I'm really impressed by Loveman. But Dominguez, a little less impressed, wants to get rid of that ether vial here. And we're going to see these players pack it up.
Yeah, that must have been a concession to dealing with a second ether vial.
Oh, Loveman just realising he's stone cold dead and has no other way of resolving his spells now that second ether vial goes away. So Dominguez with a very tidy little win in game number 3 off the back of a surprising Blood Moon. Simon, you and I, going into this game, we thought, well, Blood Moon's not the position to be in. I think we've learned a thing or two this round.
Interesting question is, do you even want it on the draw?
Do you double down?
Is this going to be your plan to go 3-0 because you have to?
Let's move to our back table now. Alexander Hayne facing off against Chris Quarterfinal. And of course, Hayne on Tron. Picked up the first 2 games, but Quarterfinal with a miraculous and very impressive Game 3 win here has tried to steady the ship at least a little. But Hayne, another couple of Urza's lands in hand. He's going to need to find that tower, however. Chromatic Star's going to help him dig towards it, a forest instead.
He even has the expedition map. That's just not turn 3 Tron if it comes to it.
Now, in hand as well, 2 very, very powerful cards here for the Canadian in the form of Ugin the Spirit Dragon and Walking Ballista. These are both all-stars against the humans list, and we're seeing one used here as effectively a 2-mana deal 1.
But I think that is actually great, because Hayne understands expedition map is just as good on turn 3 as it is on turn 2. So by using the Walking Ballista to take the wind out of Chris's sails, he buys himself the time for his heavy hitters, for the potential top decks that will come.
Here's a second copy of Noble Hierarch from Quarterfinal, a slower start from him to be sure.
But just because of that Walking Ballista, right? This is a huge deal that there's not a Mantis Rider like we saw in the game that the humans deck list won.
Now, a slower start from Hayne here with this expedition map as well. So neither player really firing on all cylinders, but I would say at the moment that favours Hayne. He wants to slow down the pace of the game. He wants to make sure he can get to resolve those big, heavy hitters. And next turn, Simon, we could see Ugin the Spirit Dragon.
Exactly. And Hayne with the very rare basic land drop. Haven't seen a lot of basics from him.
No, it's not something that Tron plays. Although we did see a Sylvan Scrying for a forest last round. That was pretty wild. But in comes the Mantis Rider, going to cut Alexander Hayne down to size here. Clip in for 4 damage, down to 16. But I don't think the Hayne plane will have any trouble departing the terminal here, because at the moment he's searching up an Urza's Tower. And with the 3 Tron lands plus that forest, Ugin the Spirit Dragon will be making a dramatic appearance and doesn't even have to go downstairs, Simon. 3 damage, get rid of that Mantis Rider. Although if you really want to put the screws to Quarterfinal, could take off 3 counters and exile all permanents that are 1 or more colour.
Both of these lines look very good to me. You can probably let the Hierarch stick around for a turn. There's nothing that can really punish you about that. Because
no, I mean, we know the contents of Quarterfinal's hand. We can look at it here and see that there's nothing hugely threatening in it. But, I mean, Hayne maybe wants to play it safe and constrict his opponent's mana. I'm not sure.
It really depends. I mean, what really deals with an Ugin that's on such a high loyalty?
Well, we will find out if there is anything that can solve this problem here for Quarterfinal, because here is Ugin, the Spirit Dragon, coming down. And we'll see where Hayne wants to go. That D12 indicates to me he's wanting to go upstairs.
I think there's a single Deputy of Detention in the 75 that, oh no, I'm looking at the wrong list, but there can't be too many ways of dealing with an Ugin.
I can see 3 copies of it here in the sideboard of Chris Quarterfinal, but yeah, I think you're right in saying, Simon, that the answers are few and far in between. Alexander Hayne downstairs with the Ugin. Get that Noble Hierarch out of here, he says, and it's back to Quarterfinal with a hand that at this stage, Simon, is less of a hand and more of a foot. It is not to... Oh! But a Damping Sphere, is that too little too late?
I think so. But Ugin has already entered the party.
Well, never mind.
your creatures are just irrelevant. This Reflector Mage looks really bad. Would have been great against the draw with Wormcoil Engine, but Hain has the turn 4 Ugin. I think the Walking Ballista might have been even more important, just not allowing Chris to put on an offense.
The thing is, Simon, humans can build a board that makes lightning bolts irrelevant. They can use Thalia's Lieutenant and what have you to remove the potency of a 3 damage spell. What they cannot do is get to a position out of nowhere when an opponent has a lightning bolt on a stick. If you've got a handful of lightning bolts on turn 5 against humans, it might be too late. If you're sitting against a human player who has stone cold nothing on the board and you've got access to lightning bolt every turn, there's no way you're losing.
And all your creatures are dying to the -2 or -3. So Ugin is really the one card that you can't beat. You need to deputy it, and even that is connected with a lot of risk.
So Damping Sphere does dampen Alexander Hain's spirits at least a little bit, but luckily the Spirit Dragon himself is here to lift him up on those great big feathered wings. And even though all these lands are tapping for 1 mana, Simon, that's not the biggest problem here for the Canadian, because as you say, he's just got this lightning bolt on a stick. He can deal with anything that Quarterfinal does, whether he wants to go tall or go wide. It's going to be a very simple matter for Hain to contain the plan of Quarterfinal.
Absolutely. If you're Quarterfinal, I don't even know what the draws are that you are hoping for. Maybe it is a deputy if you brought some of them in.
Man, with that Phantasmal Image in hand here, I think maybe Mantis Rider Image attack in for 6, but I mean, Ugin's going to 8 loyalty this turn.
So maybe Chris wouldn't even have been able to cast those 2 cards.
No, it's really not looking good here for Chris Quarterfinal, who is just a hair's breadth away from being knocked out of this top 8 by the power of Alexander Hain, the Canadian superstar, MPL member as well.
You think we might see an Ugin Ultimate, a -10?
Oh man, that'd take me right back. That'd take me right back to the days of Fate Reforged. My goodness. Alexander Hain in the process of reforging his destiny here as well.
First, we're going to see a Hardcast Karn on 7.
On 7? I mean, hey, you take him where you can get him.
You plus Karn, so you have a 10 plus Karn. You might get rid of the Sphere if you want to. Okay.
Well, here's the Mantis Rider, but no second land. No 5th land, I should say, here for Quarterfinal means that Phantasmal Image can't come in and do its good work. So we'll just get out our umbrellas here as Quarterfinal rains on the parade a little bit when it comes to that Ugin Ultimate. But Hain now with the option of a hardcast Karn Liberated. Tap 7 lands, put a 7-drop into play. Not something that Tron is necessarily interested in doing every day of the week, but hey, this time around, it's going to do the trick. Hain may go searching for a Wormcoil Engine here, or is he going to go even bigger? He's going to go as big as you can possibly go with an Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger here. Get that Damping Sphere out of here. Get my 10-10 into play next turn. Chris Quarterfinal, you can start packing your bags, my friends. He needs an absolute miracle to get out of this one, Simon.
Yep, and he's not playing the most miraculous of decks.
No, that's true. It's Alexander Hain who is the master of the miracles, and this time around it is all coming up. Canada, Chris Quarterfinal, I mean, he has fought a good fight, a fantastic win in game number 3, but it is not enough. And the Mythic champion, Alexander Hain, gets that closer to a 2nd title. Hats off to the Canadian. Well done indeed. A very, very deserved victory after a hard-fought innings against Chris Quarterfinal. But credit where credit is due. Chris Quarterfinal, he's put up a monster of a performance. Making it all the way to the top 8 of a Mythic Championship is no small achievement. Congratulations, Chris.
Hain is undefeated in Mythic Championship top 8s.
That's a very good way to look at it. I'm sure he will be very happy with that fact, and I'm sure he'll be wanting to maintain that winning record. We move back to our front table here. Eli Loveman, Javier Dominguez, Loveman serving for the match here. But a good start from Dominguez, Faithless Looting, discarding another looting, and of course that key card, Arclight Phoenix. Loveman, however, does have an Ether Vial. And we're going to see that little Ether Vial, Thalia's Lieutenant trick to put a bunch of counters on all of these creatures.
Also an incredibly good start. You have the one vial that you want, and you have the creatures that are applying the most pressure possible.
And right now, Dominguez not looking like he has a lot of options to deal with that Ether Vial or indeed the board. He's going to have to dig for them. You can see there he's got 2 copies of Sleight of Hand, which may get him closer to it. Is that an Abrade that's hanging out? Yes, it is. Okay. All right. Are we going to go after the left-handed this time around, Simon? Maybe those Blood Moons have come out.
Yeah, if you destroy Ether Vial here, I don't think you're in for a fun game.
Deputy of Detention, Reflector Mage, and you can see there this Noble Hierarch comes down to pump up the champ and get in for 3. Now Dominguez with a Crackling Drake in hand, Manamorphose as well, double Sleight of Hand. We're going to see 3 spells cast this turn, easy peasy, and at least 1 Arclight Phoenix coming back.
And that's important. That's a good way to come back into this game. Thankfully for Dominguez, the turn we just saw was very weak. And we also know that the Vial is not getting activated this turn. So just a Noble Hierarch after this really, really good turn too.
Takes his foot off the throttle a little there, does Eli Loveman, I should say. And here is spell number 2. And of course, spell number 3 coming up very shortly here in the hands of Javier Dominguez, the Spanish superstar. Another copy of Sleight of Hand. That is definitely going to trigger the Phoenix. Off the top, was that a gut shot there in addition to a polluted Delta? Simon, what do your eagle eyes see?
Dominguez has enough land, so that polluted Delta is going at the bottom. It was just a Spire Bluff Canal.
Okay. And now, a Serum Visions to round out the turn.
No more chances to get additional Phoenixes into the graveyard, I believe.
No, if you'd found a Faithless Looting, of course, things could have been a little different. But as it is, yucko. Both of those lands going below decks after having drawn a card off. A Lightning Bolt too. That's a nice pickup. That's a very nice pickup here.
And here you see the control role of the Arclight Phoenix package.
A recursive blocker.
Exactly.
And that's something that really makes Arclight Phoenix unique. In the world of Bloodghasts and Blood-Soaked Champions and other recursive threats, Arclight Phoenix can actually block.
Or not.
Well, apparently not, because Reflector Mage is going to undo that. And you can see, well, Javier Dominguez with an IRL arena interface revealing the Arclight Phoenix, which is a known card to his opponent.
It's probably also a good reminder that you can't cast it.
It's serving 2 purposes, Simon. I love it. just an actual blank piece of cardboard in his hand here. Now, Dominguez, short on time, but not short on options. We have Lightning Bolt, double Crackling Drake, and there's a Thing in the Ice as well. And we'll see what he favours this time around. Looks like it's going to be the old Drake Arena here.
The Thing in the Ice is also interesting, but it doesn't really solve his issues here. He doesn't have the amount of spells to guarantee that it'll flip, and it's only a 0/4, so it doesn't act as a good blocker, and Dominguez is almost facing lethal already.
Back to Loveman, who cycles away that second Horizon Canopy here. Finds a third one off the top, Ancient Ziggurat in hand, along with a Deputy of Detention.
That Deputy is absolutely crucial here. Just getting rid of the Crackling Rig and swinging in for another 6.
Yeah,
Dominguez is going to be in trouble.
Yeah, that's a lot of damage coming in real quick here. Coming in real quick, and maybe Eli Loveman can smell it on the wind here. Maybe he can sail on towards victory at a great rate of knots. He's on 2 wins already. He only needs to pick up the third and knock the current reigning world champion right out of this tournament. Here is Thalia, the Guardian of Thraben. Ticks up the champion to 4 counters and an uncontested attack available with this Deputy of Detention. Now, he does give up long-term value if the Deputy leaves the battlefield, but long-term value may not be in the grasp of Javier Dominguez after this massive attack here for 7.
Exactly, and 2 life left, meaning 3 creatures are lethal, and of course anything that would pump the team would also be very scary. That Lightning Bolt is definitely good.
Eli Loveman poised here to slam and jam his way into the semi-final of Mythic Championship 2, sitting cool as a cucumber. His mental game on point. He knows what he needs to do, and he has every intention of doing it, Simon. Javier Dominguez, a bit of Beethoven on the table as we see him try to figure out his way forward. Thing in the Ice. Lightning Bolt also an option for the Spaniard. But is it going to be enough? The MPL player on the ropes. Loveman with 2 damage left to get across the line. Simon, it's looking Very, very good for him here. Away goes the Horizon Canopy. Finds a Phantasmal Image. And with that Ancient Ziggurat, bounce the blocker. Get in for 100 million. We'll see what Dominguez has to say about it.
An additional Reflector Mage is probably it.
It's probably going to be enough here. Dominguez does have that Lightning Bolt to free up his Crackling Drake, but with such an abundance of lethal attackers, Dominguez may not have any option other than to extend the hand. He's burnt hot and bright in the Mythic Championship Top 8 this Sunday, but it may not be enough. Upstairs with the champion of the parish, Reflector Mage doing its good work. A big attack, and Eli Loveman has made it to the semi-finals of Mythic Championship London, and in style.